Hello, and welcome to How to Host a Successful Money Smart Week event. My name is Alejo Torres, and I'm the Senior Outreach Manager for the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. And for this session, we'll be talking about some best practices and just some tips and ideas on how to get started with putting together a Money Smart Week activity. This class or session is intended mostly for newer partners, but could be a good refresher for partners that have participated in the past. And again, we'll kind of give some basics and standard best practices and thinking around putting together events in general, but of course, as they relate to Money Smart Week. To get started, we'll talk about preparation and actually planning for your session, the critical importance of promoting your event and not relying on others to do it for you, putting together creative and compelling content and how you might want to adjust that for presentations based on audience, and of course the reporting responsibility that you have as a participating Money Smart Week partner. So preparation, plan ahead, that's the obvious, but we certainly believe that the best events have been planned in advance and have been thought through. So if you're thinking about campaign time frame, earlier is better. So the campaign time frame usually is the October of the previous year, leading into the April campaign. And most partners start their planning as early as October, November, to start getting all the details together, deciding what kind of events they want to have and where to have them. It's also important that we determine the audience and the topics that you want to have. Of course, each individual organization will have its own area of expertise, but certainly, this is step one. And thinking strategically about the resources that you have at your disposal and which events that you would like to have. And this is also important to be thinking about where you would like to have those events. Your audience may dictate where you have those events and at what kind of facilities. So location is very important. We do highly recommend that the majority of our events be held at institutions or organizations where people feel comfortable, that they are already coming to for other resources or information or classes, and don't feel like they're going to be sold products and services. So we know that this is a golden rule for all participating Money Smart Week partners, but certainly there still is that stigma attached to financial institutions if their class is being held at a bank or, again, another financial office. So if we can, try to have as many of the events at libraries, schools, nonprofits, community centers, the better. And again, I know that there are a handful of events that do take place at for-profit locations, and that's fine, so long as you are adhering to the rules and guidelines of no selling. But certainly for your audience in public, we have found that the best turnout are at these kinds of locations where, again, there is the comfort level that there will not be sold products and services. And then also think about developing and leveraging partnerships. So, and this kind of goes hand in hand in your audience, topic, location. So if there's an area that you would like to incorporate into your event that you don't necessarily have expertise over, this is the opportunity to be thinking about which partners or which type of organizations do I want to work with to inject that component into my presentation. But certainly the other side benefit of this, and we'll talk about this later, is that when you do have multiple organizations participating, you also have them promoting the event and trying to get folks to come to the class. So certainly there's lots of different ways that you can leverage those partnerships, both content and promotion. So if we kind of look at this in pictures, and a lot of these images have been taken from reports, annual reports, our wrap-up reports that we put together for individual states, but certainly for new partners, kind of get a sense of what does this look like, and what are some successful events or strategies. So this is, again, you may have seen some of these images in some of these other publications, but to give you a sense of what other partners have done. In the upper left, we have, the children looking at a stage, and this was actually at a church. So this was actually a very large production where they had skits and plays and songs and dance that they regularly do as part of this particular church's production. They have a Saturday series where they do things like this for the community. It doesn't have to be that large scale or that elaborate, but certainly be thinking about the venue, the church, as an opportunity to reach out to the larger community where they're already gathering and are familiar with getting some additional resources and information from the church. So again, just keeping that in mind as another venue possibility. If we go clockwise around the slide, upper right, you see this is actually at a event where they had a money machine, right? So you've all seen these where the air blows the money around and you grab as much as you can. And of course, this is a promotional gimmick, but certainly it's also very interactive. And again, you don't have to be this elaborate when you're putting together activities for your event, but any way that you can incorporate some interactivity with your audience, have some sort of draw like this, the better, right? So it can be, much simpler in terms of, other kind of games or activities that you incorporate to again, break up the presentation format of your class. And of course, this could also be used as a promotional piece and an angle to try to get folks to come in if you have something additional beyond just the presentation. Again, if we continue on in the center right, this is an event for seniors at a senior center, right? So if you're trying to tackle topics or issues such as identity theft or Social Security or fraud, these are, again, obviously a best practice is to go where they are, right? So again, this is a senior center, and the partner worked very closely with that institution to get classes so that they can go to where their audience is, much like the church idea. In the lower right, this may be for any participating libraries. If you're looking for content or presenters, we do have a national partnership with the USDA Cooperative Extension. So all of these land grant universities in all 50 states, University of Illinois Extension, Michigan State University Extension, all have or most have consumer economics educators and have folks that can come in and present on a variety of topics. But certainly, and then this event in the lower right is one that actually took place at the college where they were trying to engage students about how to plan and pay for college. So again, they have the ability to host and provide classes on site, but also they have the educators that can go and speak at various events. If we look at the lower left, we're looking at an event in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They have a annual conference, so to speak, or fair, where they have several classes being held throughout the day. But also in the main hall, there are booths and information where consumers can come and get more information on some of the programs that are available throughout the year, and just some more additional education around financial products and services. So again, just an idea of how you can make a longer format event that includes not just your classroom instruction, but also the booth idea with a fair. And then in the center left, we have, again, this is just a good idea for libraries to incorporate their story times. Most libraries have story time for kids, and if you can make it a money-themed story time for kids, this has been a best practice in the Midwest for quite some time now. There's different names for it: the Big Read, Money Smart Kids Read. But certainly individual states have gotten behind this in a big way in the Midwest and have chosen several books that have money themes: the Bearstein Bears, Curious George, that are a couple selections that have a couple editions with a money message. And they get either VIPs, and in this particular photo you have the governor of Michigan speaking to kids at a library in Michigan. But certainly it could be just volunteers and individual partners that go and read the books to students. And if there's a sponsor, you can perhaps provide the books as a takeaway for the kids as well. But certainly the story time is the most important. So again, these are just some ideas. You may have seen some of these before, but I want to give you some concrete examples of what we're talking about here and what we've seen to be very successful. So planning your session, consider some unique topics. So it is very important to incorporate the traditional, financial literacy classes, but consider savvy shopping and couponing. We've seen these to be very popular over the past few years, especially couponing. Legal costs, healthcare costs. Certainly, with the new healthcare law, there's lots of questions about the exchanges and how those work and how those impact families. So there's lots of opportunity to talk about money issues or questions or concerns beyond your traditional Money Smart or your financial literacy classes. And small business is another that I think is one that has been out there quite a bit, but sometimes it gets overlooked. And I think there's a big opportunity to be reaching out to small business owners and all the issues they face in terms of managing their money. Um, Titles and descriptions, right? So a lot of our events are promoted either on the online calendar or sometimes there's a local print publication. But certainly how you frame those classes are going to be very important. The again, this may be the only way or any time that they see this class is somewhere printed or somewhere online. And so, we really encourage you to be thinking about, what you put into that description or title. We encourage you to be positive, right? Not look at the negative side of money and don't include too much negative language, but be aspirational about achieving your dreams or your goals, and maybe even more specific about saving for college or saving for that vacation. Just try to be positive as opposed to the negative sides of money. Be clear and concise, right? We don't want to get too lengthy and too descriptive, but certainly clear. And creative, right? So, an example of that might be what's right below, which is instead of College Planning 101, which sounds very basic and doesn't tell me much, don't pay this college sticker price might be something that's a little bit more insightful as to what the event will be about. And again, it's just a little bit catchier and might encourage someone to attend over something that sounds, very clinical. And here's another couple examples. I'll throw a couple examples throughout this video, but certainly the one on the left, the 2014 Women's Conference, is a conference that was produced in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin for the last several years. And this is a good example of just honing in on an audience, and they've made it work, and they have had 100 plus women attend this conference for the past several years. And it's a half-day conference, right? And they've used creative and engaging images in their flyers and promotional materials. But certainly, again, this is a good example of how an event can be very targeted to a very specific audience. To the right, I believe, is also from Wisconsin, but a series of events that took place at a college, and bringing home the bacon, using that imagery and that expression, is very creative and might engage people in a different way. So again, being creative about the way you position your events and not trying to make them sound too clinical or, to be matter of fact, boring. So the other things we've looked at in terms of event ideas, best practices, again, there's so much more out there, but just to give you some examples, audiences, be thinking about, students and employees. I know that many of you that have been in this business for a while know this stuff, but certainly as a reminder, students and employees are captured audiences, right? So we don't have to stress out too much about getting people to attend, but certainly there is some legwork in working with that school or employer to get an event inside. Think about veteran groups, right? Especially as we have more and more, servicemen coming back from overseas and facing a whole set of their own concerns and issues. This is an opportunity for us to be thinking about those groups and how we can best service them. Non-English speaking, right? So there's lots of opportunity for immigrant groups that could use a lot of this information. So be thinking about the organizations or even the individuals in your organization that can provide these types of classes. I think this is something that we've seen over the years that hasn't been as robust as we'd like. There is a huge Spanish-speaking population in the U.S. And then of course there's certain pockets in certain cities or areas of the country where other languages obviously are very prevalent. So how can we reach those groups and make sure that they're getting quality information about how to manage money as well? So again, I think this has been this is an underserved group in terms of our Money Smart Week scope. So there's a big opportunity here. Membership groups, right? So folks that are already coming together for meetings and sessions or classes. These type of organizations can be reached and again invited to participate in Money Smart Week by bringing in a presenter or a guest speaker. In terms of programming, and this again, maybe I'm flipping back and forth between the perspective of a presenter and the perspective of a host facility like a library. But in terms of programming, some of the ones that we've seen um, that have been very popular among the traditional lines of financial literacy classes. College planning. Obviously, the cost of college continues to rise, so that has been very popular, and we've seen lots of people turn out for those events. Retirement planning, particularly as we had a little bit of a downturn in the economy. During the recession, post-recession, there's still very folks that are concerned about getting back to those post-recession levels. And then credit is always a popular one, whether it's establishing credit or repairing credit. And we really see that these types of classes and topics bring out a large audience. And then again, here may be some other additional alternative ideas. As I started to say in the previous slide, but dine on a dime, right? So talking about how families can, cook more foods at home and save money. Family game nights, we've seen this done really well, where we've had it could be something very rudimentary like Monopoly, but there's lots of lessons to be learned around Monopoly. So if you can kind of have a game night with Monopoly, and seize on some of the opportunities within the games to educate young people about what is really happening with the transactions and the terms. But then in addition to that, can you plug in some additional programming or education around those games before, after, during? So those are just some ideas. Or there's the traditional financial literacy games. If if you have a computer lab, there's lots of simulations online that you can do and you can engage as a group. But there's lots of opportunities to again use a different way to engage and entertain at the same time. Budget fashion show. We've seen this, at Goodwill has done a few of these where they've showcased some of the ways that you can be fashionable and buy clothes at thrift stores, secondhand stores, and save that way. So again, just some alternative ideas in terms of programming and how you can get incorporate some mix it up a bit in terms of what you're offering. Promotion obviously is key. There's lots of different ways we can do this. There is the traditional advertising, of course, which not every organization or planning team has the ability to do. But we have seen this mostly around the planning teams. So as you know, there are robust coalitions of partners participating that we call planning teams in about 20 states now. And those, they kind of share resources, they do some fundraising, and when they do that, they can do some traditional advertising around the overall effort, or even target some individual events if they're larger scale. But again, not the usual individual organization partner doesn't have that ability. But certainly, if you are a large organization and lots of the organizations already are advertising, products and services or other financial information, and if you can swap out some of those already scheduled, already bought advertising with some Money Smart Week messaging, you would just work with your marketing departments and see if that's something that's possible. Or again, maybe asking your co-presenter or partner to do that if they're a larger organization. So that's always an option. But certainly we've seen that the traditional advertising happen more with the fundraising among planning teams. And of course, there's the PR side of this, right? So the unpaid media, where you're earning it by releasing press releases, trying to pitch a spokesperson to pitch the event or the overall campaign. And this has also been very effective, mostly run through planning teams as well. But we've seen individual organizations do this very well. In the state of Florida, we do not have any formal planning teams, but we have individual libraries that are, get behind Money Smart Week in a big way and do their own press relations. And get librarians, business librarians on TV and radio to talk about some of the events. So it is possible. You just have to engage, that side of your organization to make sure that they're promoting and pitching Money Smart. Social media, right? So this is generally a free medium, although it does take time. That's the only cost to it. Unless you do want to do some advertising via social media, that is also very effective and very targeted. I would highly recommend, particularly Facebook. You can really dig down into demographics and really reach the people you want to based on what they like, what their interests are, what they're talking about. And choose any set of demographics you like as it pertains to your event, and it's pretty low cost. You can spend a few $100. You can spend a few $1,000, but certainly, it's very effective to get likes to your page, and again, which your pages should be promoting your events. And if you're not doing the media buys, certainly just using the free side of social media to engage people and show photos of classes. Maybe in your post talk about some of the content that was provided last year. Talk about some of the questions that came up last year, and that you can expect to ask at some of the videos. Do a video preview. That's something that I think is really important. If you can get the actual presenter to do a quick 30-second, 1-minute preview of what to expect in the class, right? And this also gives the audience an opportunity to see the actual presenter, right? So they have already, with that face-to-face meeting online, so to speak, they get this, they start to establish a little bit of a relationship and rapport with the speaker because they've seen them talk. They feel more comfortable and maybe more likely to come. But again, give them a promo. Tell them this is what we're going to talk about. These are some of the questions that we've had before that you are welcome to ask. Again, just that video preview I think is could be very valuable. Leverage partner and host venues, right? So again, I mentioned this before, but if you are bringing a co-presenter, making sure that they're promoting Money Smart Week just as much as you are, and the host venue. I mean, if you're a presenter going into a library, for example, don't underestimate the power of those host venues. Libraries in particular are very, very good at promoting their events and classes. It's a whole marketing machine they have in terms of getting folks to their classes. They have great turnout, and again, a very effective way to reach people and get them to the classes. So make sure that you're providing everything they need in advance at their deadlines. A lot of these publications that libraries put out have pretty aggressive deadlines and usually are in the fall or winter before Money Smart Week. So again, making sure that you're providing that information to them so they can effectively promote your events. Leverage the Fed's promo items and online calendar. So the first half, the promo items, as you know, we have logos, we have promotional materials that you can order, which should be up on the website soon in terms of, you can certainly download all the files. All the files are available so that you can download yourself and print on your own. But there will be a limited number of materials that will be available for free. So look out for announcements on the website in terms of when those will be available, and you can start ordering some of those events and ship directly to you. The online calendar, and what I mean by items would be like flyers and bookmarks and posters and items like that. But certainly, again, all these materials are already online for you to download, and in addition to logos. Online calendar, so making sure that you're getting your events into the online calendar. The majority of partners do. But I would say that we probably have about 10 to 15% of events that don't make it onto the online calendar. So this is my pitch once again to all of the participating organizations to make sure you do get your events in there. And we usually see this in some of the communities where we don't have robust planning teams. And it's understandable that, those individual organizations might think, well, no one's really going to go to the national website and find my event necessarily. So I'll just promote it locally. But certainly, putting it into the online calendar does a couple of things. Number one, it gives us a record of it, right? So we can count it as part of the overall event. But also, there is going to be more and more folks going to the national website as this becomes bigger, as we start promoting, and there will be some national promotion of this. As far as the Chicago Fed will be doing lots of PR for this. Again, we are just continuing to grow. We're seeing more and more planning teams go across the state. A lot of consumers talk to each other. They promote this on other websites and blogs and social media. And so certainly we want, family and friends that are in all parts of the country to be able to look up events that are in their community. So making sure that we're getting those events into the online calendar is very important. And we will have separate webinars and videos on how to do that if you haven't done that before, in terms of getting your event details on the calendar. Create incentives for participants. I think this is I don't know how effective this is, but it can be very effective in terms of, if you're promoting it well, and if you, have the right kind of incentives, and like door prizes, and, sometimes even food works, So again, I know that these are things already in terms of putting together an event, but don't discount them. I think if promoted effectively, they can work. With food, and one of the idea came that another best practice is a community, I believe in Iowa, that did spaghetti night at a community center, and a sponsor paid for spaghetti for a couple hundred people, right? So families came in and they had a spaghetti dinner, but of course they talked to them about money and how to they had some stuff for kids and some stuff for adults. So there's lots of different ways that you can incentivize people to come and show up to something, and give them some information that they can use down the road. In terms of media and promotion, right? So this is some of your traditional media, again, mostly put out by planning teams, but certainly, every organization has the ability to do this. If you're engaging your PR person, or sometimes if that's you too, if you have to wear several hats, but we will be putting out a media kit, right? So early in the year, we will be announcing when that media kit is available, and it has sample press releases, it has talking points, it has sample posts for social media. It has so many, different, uh, pieces of information that you can use and tailor and customize. So when you do reach out to the media, you have, again, standardized templates and things that you can engage the media with. But these are just different partners that have been on television and on radio, promoting Money Smart Week as a result of their own media relations, and it's been very effective, right? So again, leveraging those tools that are available to you in terms of the media kits, and maybe leaning on some of the partners that have the ability to do this. Social media up in the upper left as well. We talked about that, but just really trying to Money Smart Week National is the national Facebook page for Money Smart Week. But certainly, if you are interested in creating your own local page, a lot of local communities and planning teams have created their own pages, and that's okay, so long as you like us and share our content, and if we find you, we'll do the same, or let us know, and we'll certainly like you and share your content when you put it out there. So. Again, just some examples, or this is in pictures. You can see some of our partners actually using media effectively. This is an example of a couple different things actually. This is a Fond du Lac Library in Wisconsin that is kind of like the main hub for all the activities in Money Smart Week. So that's another best practice idea, right? If you're a small to medium-sized community and you don't want to have events all over the county, perhaps you think about, are there a couple of different centers where people are already coming for these events, and can they, and the other benefit, of course, is if they're coming to one event, they may stick around for the second or third one. So can you leverage and minimize the number of facilities, and again leverage the people's presence, and if they have multiple attendance at more events at one location. So again, just thinking about those central hubs as a best practice. But certainly you can see here, and this is an example how libraries are very effective in putting together their own promotional materials for Money Smart Week. So make sure you get that information to them when they need it, so they can get into these types of materials. And even on the upper right, you can see some additional. We talked about the Big Read, right? So that's a very effective campaign in the state of Wisconsin and Illinois and Michigan. Penny the Pig, that's another program that incorporates the piggy bank. Scout Night, right? So really reaching out to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and making sure that again, bringing in these troops. And a lot of these troops then have a financial literacy badge, And in some states like Iowa and Wisconsin, they've decided to make their own Money Smart Week badge and incorporate that into their learning. So, again, just another audience or idea or best practice that we've seen libraries and other partners use. Content and presentation, right? So adjusting your presentation style to your audience is important, right? Making sure that if you're talking to younger people, then incorporating more online resources, maybe incorporating technology into how folks can use technology to manage their money. Ask questions and engage. This is very important. I would recommend that at least 50% of your presentation is questions and answers, or anywhere between 30 and 50%. Because keep in mind that although you're providing a lot of quality information, giving people some good recommendations and tips, and they will appreciate that, a lot of them come to the class because they're interested in the topic, because it's something that is affecting them now. And so they're going to have questions, right? So they're going to come to the class with already a list of things in mind of what they want to have answered in your presentation, or if not, what they want to ask you specifically. So, that's it's important that you make that time. Provide examples, right, without using real names, but if you can showcase some real life examples of sometimes mistakes people have made, but also how people have turned those mistakes into something positive. Again, pointing to online resources and takeaways. If you have the ability to have them walk away with some information, great. And again, where they can continue getting more information about the topic or subject you're presenting on. And of course, don't sell. I've said this earlier, as this is a golden rule for Money Smart, but it's also a very big turnoff, right? So if we have that happening, consumers will report it to us. It will be in the surveys. But it's also not a good practice in terms of, and most presenters know this, and most for-profits that are in the financial education arena know that that's not a good way to get customers, right? I mean, if you're providing information for free, that's the way to go. And so what does this mean in terms, and there's a whole presentation we'll do later about what you can and can't do in relation to that. But I'll answer a few of those questions now. So you can have your logo on your slides. You can have your brochures and business cards at the back of the room. So if you want to tell folks, if you want to reach out to me and talk to me more about what my company does, I'll be more than happy to do that. I just can't talk about it here in this session. So just have that information that people can, but don't hand it out. Have it be something that people can pick up on their own. And we also can't collect any names or contact information. And even if you are intending to use it only as, to promote your educational side, that doesn't always happen. So we do not, and this is mostly this is for all partners, but for our host facilities like libraries, these are some of the rules that you kind of have to be watching out for, making sure that presenters are not abusing. Again, we will have another video that focuses on the presenter responsibilities as well as the host facilities. But certainly those are the highlights. Reporting, so surveys, we do have in the partner kit, which is on moneysmartweekpartners.org. The partner kit has all of and we talked about in our previous videos the new partner orientation. We talked about the partner kit in detail, but certainly there is a partner kit that has all of this information in it as well. It has surveys that you can use at your events. If you can print them out and hand them out, collect them, and then upload them to SurveyMonkey. We have them in English and Spanish. You are asked to record attendance, and it's not the number of surveys is actually counting how many people are in the class. And because with our online database, after your event ends, you will be getting emails asking you how many people attended. So we know it's not a perfect science. We know it's not an exact number, but we're asking you to be as accurate as possible. So if you can actually count heads, that would be preferred. And again, report it into the system. Share your successes, right? We want to know about we want to see the photos from your events. If you have any video from the events, if you happen to chat with folks after your event that want to ask them what did you learn? Are you excited about incorporating some of the strategies we talked about? This is all good stuff that we can use. Of course, you need a consent for that. So if your organization has a consent for video or photos, Now the photos, if it's in a larger class, you do not need a consent for that, because especially if it's in a public place. If you're in a school, however, or a workplace, yes, you do need the consent. But if they're in a public place at a public event, you don't need the consent from individuals. But if you can take a photo of the class, we would love to share those full classrooms in our annual reports and whatnot, so that the partners going forward can see some of these highlights and best practices. Other quick key learnings before we wrap, don't solely rely on the host facility for promotion. As I mentioned, libraries are fantastic and they do a great job, and you probably can get away with some of those libraries, especially the larger ones that do really well. But I wouldn't solely rely on that. Do as much as you can to promote the event. Don't rely on the Fed's national promotion to get people to your individual class. When we ask people in the survey, how did you hear about the event, the majority of them is word of mouth and that one-on-one connection. So as much as you're able to promote it to your constituents, your audience, your customers, as much as possible, the better. And it's just going to, secure better attendance for you. Ensure, this is kind of event management 101, but making sure that your venue setup is in advance, right, with your host facility, making sure that they have the technology and the room set up exactly the way you need it or would like it. If you need a table at the back of the room for materials, etc., just making sure that that's taken care of in advance, and vice versa for your host facilities as well, making sure that your presenters have everything they need. Request a host facilitator. So we've seen this as a best practice in some of our communities where the host facility will actually have someone come out and open up the event and give the context for Money Smart Week and how this individual class fits into all of that, and kind of serves that role. So we've kind of seen that work really well. In the partner kit, you'll see it in the presenter materials, which again we will have a session later. Talks about, it has like an opening script or bullet points that we would like all of our presenters to read, and sometimes this is handed off to the facilitator. And again, it's just, reminding them that this is a Money Smart event and that they can't talk about products and services, and that there's, other events taking place throughout the community. I already talked about this, but certainly saving plenty of time for Q&A. Being careful not to get into too personal with attendee money issues, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer, but certainly even if a individual is going there, try to back off and say, well, let's talk offline, let's talk after. Just making sure that there's and most part people won't go there because of the privacy issue, but certainly something to be mindful of. And if someone starts getting too personal, making sure that you don't go down that line too far and ask them to see you after. Don't be discouraged by low attendance. This is we get a lot of this where there. I mean, this program or this campaign is a mostly for the large part is an open to the public type of campaign, and so all of these events, we have varying attendance, and there's lots of reasons why people don't show up. Don't take it personally. It could be weather. It could be just life issues, family issues that come up, reasons why people don't turn out. But don't be discouraged by that. I know most organizations involved in this do see an uptick in attendance, and that's why they keep coming back year to year. And overall, Money Smart Week is very successful. But there are plenty of classes where the attendance is low, and we do have some partners that are discouraged by that. But don't be understand that this is an educational platform that you're probably going to affect those people a lot more if you have a few people in the room and you can really get to their questions and to their concerns and issues. You're probably going to have more impact with those few people than you would with a room with 100, right? So think about it that way, and making sure that you're still giving that small group your best, and not discouraged, and don't let that show when you're presenting, and spend the time that you need with that small of a group. And as I said already, word of mouth is the strongest promotion, so make sure that you're promoting this as many ways as possible. So where can you get more information? MoneySmartWeekPartners.org. As I've said already, we have the partner kit there. If you haven't looked at it already, you should. It's a very big document, but it provides a timeline. It provides some history, some context, some best practices, all of this information that you can use for your events. We've highlighted a few things here, but certainly at least breeze through the kit so you know what's in it. And if you have any issues or if you have any questions or things come up throughout the campaign, you know that you can go back to that document and get that information. We do have a best practices blog on moneysmartweekpartners.org. It's not as filled out as we'd like it to be, but there's certainly some good stuff. There's some old stuff and there's some new stuff. But take a look at it, see what some of our partners have put out there, or we've put up for our partners. There's some good stuff, and if you have any suggestions and you'd like to add to it, please let us know. LeadCon page. So we had our leadership conference in October, where we brought in all of the planning team chair people. Well, not all of them, but we invited them all, and we had about 130 planning team chairs and sponsors that came to Chicago and basically shared all of their best practices, right? What has worked, what hasn't worked in the communities. And this was the third time we've done that. So please visit our page on moneysmartweekpartners.org, and you can see all the presentations, well, at least the slides for now. We're still working on the videos. We're wrapping those up and should have them by the end of the year, but look at the videos and watch the sessions. Again, it's great stuff. It's communities highlighting a decade plus of best practices. So there's lots of great stuff there. These recorded webinars, right? So we have the new partner orientation that's already up there in 2 segments, but we certainly will be adding more webinars going forward. So as I said, this video is just a highlights of what's out there. There's so much more that I could spend half a day talking about this, but but certainly there's on your own leisure time you can go and look up some of these additional best practices and information. MSWreports.org is our annual report. I've talked about that before, but certainly you can go there and see some of the highlights from 2015 in photos and in blurbs in terms of the highlights. So check that out. ConsumerFinance.gov library resources, that is actually provided by the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and they work with libraries just like we do for Money Smart Week, and in fact they're trying to make libraries the go-to source for financial literacy all year round. So they have collected their own robust list of best practices and things that they've seen from communities. And I would encourage you to check it out as well, because for libraries and for non-libraries, because again, there's lots of great content and ideas there. Planning teams, as I mentioned, there's at least one planning team in 20 plus states. On our website, you can look to see where those planning teams are and the contact information for those chair people in case you would like to connect with a local planning team. Now, you may not always have a planning team in your area. Our goal is to eventually have at least one planning team in every state. But certainly, as we continue to grow, there might be some gaps in planning teams, and there may not be one in your area. But certainly, if there is one, you want to leverage that and lean on that as much as possible. And of course, the Money Smart Week team. So we are always available to answer questions, and you can reach us through the website. All of our contact information is there, and that's another resource for you. So that concludes our program for how to host a successful Money Smart Week event. Again, this is just a highlights, and if you need some additional help or support, you can always reach out to us, your neighboring partners, your planning teams, just a wealth of resources that you can turn to. So join us or make sure that you're looking at our recorded videos page and making sure that you're catching the upcoming videos as well. Thank you.